Greetings everyone. Welcome to my new YouTube channel. On this channel, I aim to create videos that discuss various issues on the topic of modeling, painting, collecting, and playing miniature games. And of course, create any useful hobby tips that I can offer and that would interest you, the audience. In this video, I'd like to discuss a relevant topic to myself right now, giving new life to an old army that has been collecting dust for years. Now, I have nothing against people who like Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I imagine it's a really fun game. It's just too different from the Warhammer Fantasy game that I got hooked to as a teenager. Also, the idea that the lands, stories, and the people of the world I fell in love with are basically gone, replaced by something so different, just feels like a gigantic middle finger to me. I know it's not meant to be, but that's just how it feels. And yeah, I know that there are many old characters of legend still active in the game and lots to be excited about, but I just don't feel like giving it a chance anymore. Not only this, but as an exclusively dwarf player, I felt extra pain as I had been waiting for a new army book for basically a decade. The previous one came in the 6th edition, and when the army book that came out during the last months of 8th edition basically became irrelevant almost as soon as it came, it was the camel that broke the straw. I just felt like I never wanted to touch another Mass Army miniature game again, which was such a pity since I spent so many years carefully hunting for classic models from eBay and using nearly all of my free time to paint them. Now, they were essentially paperweights, and even worse, they were paperweights that I didn't want to look at since they reminded me of what had happened. This has been the case for, again, basically a decade. Good thing they're dwarves and live for a very long time. I've tried to get into 40k, but it's not really my jam. I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, and choosing all those weapons and the weapon meta constantly swapping weapons back and forth just sounds really frustrating to me. Not to mention the massive amount of books, rules, and additions that change way too fast. Incidentally, anyone want to buy a painted start collecting orc box? So, instead, I've been playing skirmish games for many years now. My absolute favorite game is Blood Bowl, partly because it still lives in the classic Warhammer world of yesteryear. But it has started to feel that it's just not enough. No matter how many BB teams I get, many being the operative word here, they don't scratch the itch of the pleasure of amassing a real army and having epic battles over a large battlefield. Having enough teams to basically field an army doesn't count, unfortunately. The problem with trying to get back into Fantasy Warhammer is that it no longer has one legitimate rule set. Everyone has their own favorite alternative to play Warhammer, from Warhammer Renaissance to Ninth Age. And since everyone plays a different system, it's very difficult to get a large group of people playing the same game, and therefore things feel very unstable. There's no security that what people play right now is what they might be playing next year. And therefore, I don't feel the passion to start using my time to build up an army because that particular rule set may fall out of favor in any gaming group at any time. But I'm happy to report that I've found a solution, and it's to completely abandon the Warhammer ecosystem and move on to Kings of War. The game has many fans, and even in my small town, and it's full of players who aren't just waiting for the next Warhammer Fantasy to come back, but actually are interested in sticking with Kings of War. And the really cool thing is that I can fill nearly everything in my Warhammer Dwarf army. Plus, the list offers monsters and cavalry, so no more boring standing and shooting for my dwarves. I'm also excited that it gives me an opportunity to buy some new units and create diorama style multi bases for my old army. I really love this future of the game. And it turns out that is exactly what gave me the enthusiasm to get out my old dwarfs again and actually enjoy modeling with them. Here, I've already got 2 units of Berserkers and Rangers ready. There used to be an 8th edition suitable unit of 30 Rangers and a unit of 30 Slayers, so I purchased a few new models to be a second command group for both the Rangers and Slayers, and I divided the rest of the models into 2 new regiments. I'm planning to create a separate video on how to create these diorama bases, but here is a summary of the process. I decided to go with a natural dwarven scenery. It was really cool to create a variety of these and then place the dwarves in a loose formation on top of the rocks. I think this looks much more natural than everyone being in perfect formations at all times in the middle of the wilderness. I haven't played any Kings of War games yet, but I know that I'll like it. And even if I don't, I know that I'm happy that I've gotten my passion to work with my old dwarfs back. And to think that I've considered selling my dwarfs so many times. That would have been such a waste of my money and time. But an equal waste was having them collecting dust in the attic. So, dear viewer, What finished or partially unfinished models are being unused for you? Could you find a game where you'd want to use them again? How much you get your passion for those models back? Perhaps it's just a matter of switching games. I hope you've enjoyed this short video. Please be patient with the lower qualities. I'm still learning and in the process of getting better equipment. I have many more topics rattling in my brain that I'd like to share my insight on, and I feel that in my 20 years of painting experience, I've learned a trick or two that could benefit you. So, I hope that I've hooked you sufficiently for you to want to come back and watch more.